time for another meeting of the Arizona Breakfast Club. Okay, sounds like we have more of a crowd than we do. It's, the question is whether we continue the meetings or not. We have Michael doing the video. When I was going to be out of town, I had him come and do it, and asked him if he would just kind of take over doing that part, because for me to bring my camera and do all that was a lot of other work, and figured if we collected any money at the meetings, whatever's left over we'd give to him. Well, he's a professional, and he's making about $2 an hour, you know, so it's it really isn't cost effective for him to keep doing this. If you go look at the videos, if you go to ArizonaBreakfastClub.org, that's the website there. I always post on that site what meeting is coming, who the speaker is, and then after the fact, if we slide down on here, I'll move over here. Dr. Tambury, when he spoke last time, after I get the video posted, I put a link to it on the website. So all the previous meetings have the video embedded, but it's on YouTube. If you go to YouTube and just type in Arizona Breakfast Club and search, you'll find all the meetings I've recorded for the last 9 years. And they're all there. You can just go to my channel. When you're on one of them, go to my name on there. It'll take you to my channel, and look under videos, and you'll see the list of all the different videos, including Echo Farm and cattle and some other things I've got on there. It's interesting to look at the number of people that view each of these. Breakfast Club, generally we have around 10 to 20 people that view this after the fact. And you look at Echo Farm and cattle, and you'll see 4,000 views or whatever because of the branding I put up in there. I've had people from around the world say, oh, that brought back memories of my childhood, different things, you know, out there branding the cattle. It was, those are fun videos, but I had my grandson with me the one summer when we went up. Anyway, that's where it's located. And the question is, do you prefer the meeting? We asked first Saturday or second. Seems like there's kind of a mix of people, but we don't have a large crowd here, so getting statistics isn't really helpful. It's just a general opinion. Doesn't seem that it's a lot of difference, but a lot of other groups would meet the first Saturday, so if we're the second, we probably don't have much competition. Asking if you watch YouTube, some did, some didn't. And ArizonaBreakfastClub.org, you can go there, look at any one of the videos, click on it, and click the YouTube in the bottom. It'll take you over to YouTube, and then you can find the channel and see all the other ones. If we're going to pay Michael for doing all of his editing work and all the video, if we want to do that, we need to have more people come, and we need to raise more money. He should get at least $200 to $300 a month to do this work. We come Friday night, we set all the equipment up. We come on Saturday, and we're here from 8 o'clock in the morning till noon or after, and then he's got editing to do. So if we continue to do that, we need to have more money coming in, or we could have one person present who gives $500 a month, and we'll be covered, you know. And then Renee wanted to know if anyone's interested in a movie night. She asked a lot of you those questions, and it looks like Friday nights. Friday would be great if we were to do a movie night. We can select some documentaries or some other films that are available. I've been buying some on vaccines and other topics. Those videos could be shown to a group. We can put it on this screen and have a meeting here on Friday night before our Saturday meeting. If we did that, we have to set the room up anyway. So we'd come and set the room up, have that meeting, and then the next morning we're all set up and ready. So
we did get a $10 donation today.
Good. Appreciate it. So we'll have to decide what we've got. We've got speakers tentatively lined up for January and February and probably March. Some guy suggested to me that I have a scientist come and that he knows who's got, and I'm not even sure what the topic is, but he sounds like he's quite interesting. So I wanted to see exactly what he would speak on, and that'll probably be March if we do that one. We can also have Michael Schoen come back. He wanted to do a presentation on his trip to Germany and his research of World War II. And then he said some of his family members may not like it. So he was afraid to do it. And I think he ought to do that and get it on film so we have a record of it. So I'll see if I can talk to him about the possibility of coming.
How about David Hodges again?
Yeah,
David Hodges.
right. Well, we can ask Dave Hodges, and we've got Alan Corwin possibly to come.
Okay, I'll have a special speaker in February. I'm
Okay.
going to announce it, but I do not want Ernie Hancock to step on my feet. It's Charles Koyak.
Okay.
He has a new book, and, you know, so.
He'll come and
if it's ready,
offer the copy to the 10 people who are here. We better have about twice as many people, folks, so you need to start asking people to come and call the people that aren't showing up, and we need to do that. We probably need to go through the email list in our spare time and make an email list to send out email to everyone who signs in on these sheets, because we do have a lot of email addresses that we've captured over the past year or so. This was the 51st year of the Breakfast Club, and this is I think the month of December, so I think this is the end of the 51st year, and we'll be starting year 52, and it's a lot of years. So the Legal Research Society met for a number of years, and those of you that remember John Wild, who ran those meetings, when I started coming in about 2000, John was running the meetings, and then he died, and J.C. Chisholm temporarily took over before he went to prison. And then I got the meetings, and we kept them going for a while. But over time, people quit fighting the IRS because found out it really didn't help you. Yeah, you weren't going to win, so you just need to arrange your affairs so that you minimize the damage. And that's with most of life. You minimize your damage, you'll be all right. And I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a paralegal. I handle a couple legal cases for myself with the help of the Gutenkopfs doing research, and I basically won both of those cases. And after I didn't have those to talk about anymore, it was up to other people to bring up things to talk about. Nobody had anything they wanted to do. We got down to very few people, and we just kind of ended that organization. So I'm certainly in favor of this meeting continuing. We can have a lot of different guests and talking on various topics, from 9/11 and politics and whatever, and science and vaccines, all kinds of things. So there are a lot of issues going on today that should make these meetings quite interesting. Randy's going to speak today. He's been here before. His bio's up there on the screen. We've enjoyed hearing him, and I think this is going to be a good presentation today. We'll have it on YouTube, and if you enjoy it, pass the word to go to YouTube and have people take a look at it, and maybe we get some more people to come to these meetings. I'd like to see 30 people in here. If we have 70, we got too many. We don't want to let it get too big, but anywhere from 30 to 40 we can squeeze in this room, and that would be good. Anybody have any comments that they want to make about the meetings, or any suggestions for next year? I covered it all? Wow. Okay. Well, Randy, if you'd like to, I'll get over here. The microphone he's got, if it fails, we've got 2 more to turn on, so we should be in good shape.
Excuse me, he's got me wired up.
Yeah.
I don't know if this comes, oh, it does.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you go slide on Trump now, or what?
All right. I thank you for letting me come again. It's been a while. I told them I would talk about red flag law, Constitution. First of all, I like to teach the Constitution. I'm an originalist, as is Clarence Thomas, who I think is a wonderful Supreme Court justice. I wish he would hang around a long time. And I'm the Arizona director for the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. Our goal is to get constitutional legislators and sheriffs that understand their oath and will actually do what they promise you they will do, and that is uphold their oath. And we're seeing that play out today in Virginia, Washington State, Oregon, with these red flag laws and just all-out policies to outlaw certain types of assault weapons. And I think that's been a long-term agenda of the Marxist, socialist, communists that have been infiltrated in our government for decades. But let me go back and explain. How many of you read the Constitution and fully understand it? I know you do. But I mean, really understand it that from an originalist point of view of the intent and what the purpose is for the Constitution. We have 3 people. Okay. Let me go real quick. The Constitution is a contract between the states. We know that, right? It's a compact. The states came together and they had a design that needed to be fixed. Who knows what that is? What do we have before the Constitution? Articles of Confederation. There was a lot of lapse in the Articles of Confederation that weren't working for cohesiveness. They were still doing their own thing, money, stuff like this. So they came together and they said, we need to do things. If we're going to be living in harmony as separate independent states, which we are today, they didn't just change anything there. We need to understand that if New York is competing against Virginia on trade with England or France or Germany, we're competing against each other, are we not? So our interests are going to be dissimilar because we're trying to work a better contract for trade. And then if we're going to use money, if we're using our different money, they're going to have different values. So we're competing against ourselves there. If we're going to have if we're going to have conflicts with other nations, who's going to declare war? That's going to impact us as Virginia if New York declares war. Or if we're in a conflict and Virginia decides to negotiate a peace agreement, is it going to be advantageous to New York as well? So they realize we can't compete against each other on these things. So we need to change what we're doing so we're working for similar interests for the country as the United States. So we came up with, and we had a convention, and we ratified a constitution September 15, 1787. What is tomorrow? Who knows what tomorrow is? Our constitutionalist? Yes, thank you. Tomorrow's, that's for my shirt. Tomorrow is the anniversary date of our Bill of Rights. Okay, we wouldn't have the Constitution if there was no promise from Madison that he would give the Bill of Rights, he would do what he could to put it forward. So Patrick Henry is a big advocate for the Bill of Rights. He did not like the Constitution as written. He thought it was destructive, too much power to central government. So we got the Bill of Rights as a further declaratory statement that these are rights government has no legislative authority over. These are inalienable rights given to us by God. Man has no control over it. Every human being has these rights. So with the promise from Madison that he would do what he could to push forth the Bill of Rights, because Madison wanted to be a House of Representative member and he wouldn't get voted on by those, Patrick Henry said they'd support him in Washington. He wanted to be in the bill of, on the House of Representatives, so he promised he would do that. And we have our bill. Now we have our Bill of Rights, the 10 amendments that guarantee our liberties, and these were all things that they've experienced from England's power over them. Housing military members in your house, searching and just looking for crimes and looking for things that they can charge you for without not protecting your personal property and your rights, Fourth Amendment. Trying you for crimes in our country under English rule, but yet sending you to Canada for trial. So no trial among your peers. Said no, if you'll be tried by our laws with our peers judging. This is very important because now what we have today is we have situations in Oregon where they're passing red flag laws, and we have sheriffs that say no, you are not going to violate, and I'm not going to violate my oath. You're putting me in a position now as a sheriff or as an oath taker where I have to make a decision to act on what we know to be unconstitutional laws, or uphold my oath and say, you can't do that. So the government is actually putting our people and our office oath takers in a bad position. Can we go here? Republicans, this is our belief. I'm running for Arizona House of Representatives because I'm not being represented. And I'm tired of it. I don't believe you're being represented. Do you believe you're being represented? Is your interest being represented by anybody in office, Republican or Democrat?
Donald Trump's the only one.
Well, yes and no. Now, hold me. If you understand the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, 18 powers that were granted to Congress, 6 of those are war powers, 11 through 17. 18 is granting them authority over 10 square miles, which is Washington, D.C. That's the only part in the Constitution that grants them power over land, with the exception of one of the War Powers Act. I don't remember if it's 14 or 15, that says, with the permission of state legislators, they will have control over forts and ports for military institutions, but they have to ask the state legislators permission, and then they compensate them for it. That's the only authority over land when we're talking about BLM and national forest, these other issues we're talking about later. I won't get into that today. So where was I? So if you look at, if we remove those 7 powers, there's 11. That's it. If we look at the 11 remaining powers, not the Washington power over the seat of government, Washington, 10 square miles, and by the way, that was not declared a state, and I don't see anywhere in the Constitution that allows them to have their own senators and congressmen, do you?
Correct.
Okay. So I question that too. Anyway, so if we remove those 7, they have 11, and if we look at the 11, what's left? Well, they have the authority to coin money. They have the authority for control over post offices and post roads to get to those offices. They have the authority over patents, weights, and measures. They're supposed to secure the continuation of sciences through patents. So if we look at all those, where is it in there that they have the authority over your thoughts? How many of you have heard of H.R. 838, the TAPS Act? Okay, look up H.R. 838, it's the TAPS Act. Where is it in there in the federal, that the federal government has the authority to give taxpayer money to the states for doing things? I'm talking about grants. Is there an authority for the federal government to pay a state to participate in speed limits, for instance? 1970s, remember that? Is there authority? Does the federal government, in Article 1, Section 8, anywhere in there, is there an authority for the federal government to take our money and bribe a state to do things that's federal law? That's not in the Constitution. Education, how about that? Is there anything in the Constitution that mentions anything about education?
No.
Not at all. Department of Education is not constitutional, but yet they bribe through grants to participate in federal programs, and that in lies the problem between state and federal government relationship, because now we're in conflict. Do we follow our own laws, or do we accept money and follow their law? Because there's money attached to it. We are really losing our perspective and our scope of focus on what is for the people and what is for the purse that's attached to it. Did you know in Arizona Constitution, I'm just talking because I find that this is more effective. In Arizona's constitution, that we have a constitutional amendment that was ratified by voter, I don't know how long ago it was, maybe 10, 15 years ago, that says it's under our rights, Article 2. I think it's Article 2, Section 25, somewhere around there, that says that discrimination, we will not discriminate on religion, sex, anything like this, except if there's federal monies attached to it. What is that? You see where we've gone? If you can find the Constitution in there, you'll never mind, we'll go over H.R. 38. But look it up. Look up our Article 2, towards the end, discrimination, and then look at the exception clause. So if there's money attached to it, we can discriminate. And what would be the first thing come to mind when you're talking about that? Huh? No. Go ahead. You had, yes, sir.
I had a question.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a puffball on this because you're talking about some very legitimate things here. How are they getting away with this?
Our ignorance, the people's ignorance as to the civics.
What part of the Constitution are they using to get away with it?
Oh, okay, H.R. 838. Could you go to the Constitutional Authority Statement?
Okay.
In 2011, the House of Representatives, because under the Constitution, both houses, the Senate and the House of Representatives, come up with their own rules for how each is going to operate. In 2011, the House of Representatives came up with a rule that said any bill or legislation that a member puts forward has to have a constitutional authority statement. Okay? Means they have to cite a section of the Constitution that grants them authority to do what they're asking to be put forward as legislation and become law. The reason I said sometimes on Trump, and I'm a Trump supporter, I like Trump, but I'm not one of those sycophants that's going to be 100%, you support him 100% or else. You can't. I do not hold allegiance to any man, woman, or party. I hold it to the Constitution and I hold it to you. This isn't a communist country where it's all about the party. My wife grew up in communist Russia. Her family grew up in communist Russia. I go back there, I've been there 4 or 5 times now. We go for a month at a time, and we talk to my friends and family that live there about their experiences living in a communist country. It's all about the party. We have done that to ourselves here. It cannot be about the party. Constitutional Authority Statement, to answer your question, they say, Congress has the power to enact this legislation pursuant to the following. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3. What is that? That's the Commerce Clause. So, and they also abuse Article 1, Section 1, which is a taxation clause. That is we'll stick on this real quick. This could be a whole new just presentation alone. But on the Commerce Clause, Justice Thomas even says that the Supreme Court has to go back to the original purpose and meaning and intent of the Commerce Clause. They're saying H.R. 838 is a TAPS Act. They want to develop a Threat Assessment, Prevention, and Safety Act. Threat assessment. I worked with threat assessments my whole career as a probation officer, working with gangs, working with sex offenders, working with drug addicts, working with domestic violence. We used risk assessments as a tool. If she can look at it, and I wrote a 6-page letter to Dr. James Covey, who was the state, Maricopa County, I'm sorry, but I'm trying to put in perspective, Maricopa County Superintendent of Schools. He wanted me to sit on a MITAC committee, which was a committee that's bringing juvenile offenders from incarceration and reintegrating them into society. And I sat one day on the committee, and I listened to them speak, their presentations and everything, and I saw nothing but problems with their risk assessments process and how they handle them. And then if you take this process and say, now here we have the federal government that wants to use a risk assessment system, and they want to control it, which there's nothing in Article 1, Section 8 that gives them the authority to do this. Clause 3 is the Commerce Clause. The Commerce Clause is for general regulation to make sure that commerce is uninterrupted and not favored among any one state. In other words, the free flow of commerce. How is your thought and prevention of a possible threat that you may have based on some nebulous idea related to commerce? Anyone? This is what Congress, 78 Republicans co-sponsored this. Now, how is this related to commerce? As a number one, forget about the legislation at all, just the idea of the legislation, that they want to take a possible risk and they want to incorporate Homeland Security, FEMA, they want to incorporate mental health, Department of Health Services, federal and state, not very many. The majority of the people stacked on this committee that they want is federal agencies, not state. And then they want to have fusion centers. Fusion centers, you all heard of fusion centers?
Concentration camps?
Yeah.
No, that's FEMA. Fusion centers are agencies that, oh gosh, I'm sorry, this is so involved. If you look at 9/11, that gave us Homeland Security, it gave us the Patriot Act, it gave us the Real ID, which is that little star. All this is unconstitutional.
That would be a yellow star, right?
Yes. That means, so this is federal dictation upon the states, which remember, we said, one thing I didn't get into on the Constitution, we made this contract among the states. We created the general government, right? When we created the general government in this contract that's held by the states, we gave them specific enumerated powers, but we retained all the rest. And we retained our sovereignty as a state. Think of it this way. Each state is an independent sovereign nation. Arizona is like France or Greece or Germany. We're independent sovereign nation. Our source of power for the state is not the US Constitution. Our source of power is our state constitution. So when we created the federal government, we are independent sovereign states operating under international law, which is the US Constitution. Does that make sense? So we created them for only specific things. We operate independently. Article 6, Clause 2, the Supremacy Clause, which is not in conflict with the 10th Amendment, that says that those laws created in accordance to this Constitution are the supreme law of the land. That means only those laws that they create in accordance under the conditions and law specifics of the Constitution are legal. This is not. 78 Republicans signed on to this. So they want to have this group of people controlled by the Secretary of Homeland Security and pay to the states to participate. How they get around this is not mandatory. It's voluntary, just like gun registration. But we're going to pay you with the $23 trillion debt to participate. States sign on to this all the time. Our legislators will sign on to it. Obamacare. Who signed on to that? Jan Brewer, a Republican. It's unconstitutional. Where in the Constitution does it give the authority of the federal government over your health care? Communists want it. Read the Communist Manifesto. How are they going to take over government? Brezhnev in the 50s said we don't have to invade, we can take over through within. And that's what they're doing. So anyway, this legislation here, you can see are these all the Republican legislators? It's probably grown by now. Every single one of them is violating the oath of office. This is why I'm running. I'm not represented. Are you? So they want to put together a system, and this legislation says we want to put together a committee that will last, and 6 months, within 90 days after signing this, a committee will be formed, and it will compile of 24 members, and they outline them. They want a couple from law enforcement. Everybody has to have some training in risk assessments of threat. I mean, I had that because we had to do them. And I can tell you it's not adequate to do what they're thinking they're going to do. Nobody can predict someone's behavior. So anything you write, and they're going to assess, thank you. I've emailed her twice on this and have not had any satisfactory response on why she supports it, why she thinks the Commerce Clause is a justification under the Constitution to put it forward. Haven't heard a thing. He's kind of thrown me off a little bit. Let me finish. So when we're talking about these things, they violated their oath because there's nothing there to do, and they will not respond with a request to any request with a logical explanation as to how that's justification to do what they want to do, because the average person does not pay attention. Nobody here knew about this. How many? 21 Senate Bill 2165 put forward by Martha McSally that goes even further. Trump just signed a federal law that makes it a federal crime for animal abuse. We have laws for that in the state. How are we? This is why we gave them specific authorities and we retain the rest, because who are you gonna abide? Federal? Are you telling me a federal officer who has no jurisdiction in the state of Arizona, without the permission of the sheriff, is going to come in and arrest someone if they get a complaint for beating their dog? When we have our own state charges? There's nothing, we didn't give them authority. Is this under Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1, the taxation clause, where it says Congress has the authority to tax for the general welfare and common defense of the states? Do you understand what they're talking about when they say general welfare? It's like the Commerce Clause. It's just to make sure that the states generally are not in conflict with each other. We can tax to do these things that we have under Article 1, Section 8 to make sure we can do these, not so we can give money to foreign governments and foreign Congress, foreign entities. That's not the general welfare of the United States. We have gotten so far out of bounds on all this. Would you agree? What was your question?
Well, my question was, you just covered it. I was going to mention the general welfare. We're getting away from using the general welfare clause. But the next question I have is, do you consider the Declaration of Independence an integral legal part of the body of the Constitution?
I don't consider it that. It's stated as that.
Yeah.
It's stated as that it is a part of this Constitution, in addition to, and it's a further declaratory statement. Did you read the beginning of, oh my gosh. Yes. When you look at these, Virginia, for instance, it says the conventions of the United, this is a preamble to the Bill of Rights, the conventions of a number of the states having at the time of their adopting the Constitution, remember I talked about a condition, we will adopt it if we get this, expressed a desire in order to prevent misconstruction or abuse of its powers that further declaratory and restrictive clauses should be added, and as extending the ground of public confidence in the government, well, that's gone, will best ensure the beneficent ends of its institution. Resolved by the State and House of Representatives at the State of the United States of Congress assembled, 2/3 of both houses concerning Article 5 requires that, that the following articles are proposed to the legislators of the several states, and it was ratified as of tomorrow, December 15th, as amendments to the Constitution of the United States, all or any of which articles, when ratified by 3/4 of said legislators, to be valid to all intents and purposes as part of said Constitution. So do I believe it is? No, I know it is because they said so when they ratified it. Does that answer your question?
I just wanted you to bring it up.
Okay, I know you did. You are very intentful on your questions, I know. But so that's, yes, they are. And for any state, for any legislator to propose a red flag law to take your weapons before you commit a crime and then take you to a court to have someone else tell the court that he's got some mental issues or he made some statements that were very angry. I get angry. How many here have not made an angry statement in just?
Every day.
Okay, be careful. You might lose your pen. It's a weapon. And then take your weapons in violation of the Fourth Amendment that says we will be secure in our person, property, papers, and effects from unreasonable search and seizure unless presented on a warrant. So that's part of our Bill of Rights. It's a declaratory statement. It says this shall not be infringed. So for them to do that outside of an Article 5, which is the only way you can modify the Constitution. Ladies and gentlemen, what they're doing is effectively modifying the Constitution outside of Article 5 convention or outside of Article 5 for the House to do 2/3 of both houses to ratify it and then send it to the states for us to agree to. It's a mess. Sir. Go ahead in the back, yeah.
It's my observation, I've been studying this with most of you for 30, 40 years now, and what's really going on is blackmail. The reason they're voting for these bills is they're all blackmail. And the reason they gave us all these spy devices all the way over here and in our own pockets is to blackmail us. For the fusion centers to decide who goes to camps who don't believe in this new way. Woodrow Wilson got us for one on blackmail. All these leaders are voting for these unconstitutional bills because they are blackmailing. 3/4 of them in the island, in Epstein's Island. And they've been doing it in the Reagan era too.
Yes and no. I'll agree in part and I'll disagree in part. Debbie Lesko's new to Congress.
Yeah.
She's only working on her second term. She was appointed and then she was voted, oh no, excuse me, she wasn't, she was voted on quickly because Trent Franks resigned, and then she had to run again 3 months later. 2 months, almost immediately actually. So she's only starting her full second term. She's new to this. She was in the Senate and the House in Arizona before that. She should know better. So I won't say it's blackmail as much as I say, because I've known her and several others since 2011 when I became a precinct committeeman in our district. And I've been talking Constitution to them since that time and learning myself. It's a constant learning process. I'm not saying I know everything, I don't. I'm learning all the time when I keep reading Federalist Papers or reading articles from other people on the Constitution. So it's an ongoing learning process. So for me to say that I'm still learning to someone who hasn't even studied it, we're way apart in understanding what we can and cannot do. And many of these people have no clue of what the Constitution really means, says, and its purpose. That's how we get this. And it's a power grab. They get mired down in this thought process of, well, I'm elected, I'm in power, I got to do that, I'm acting. I love this phrase that I hear, that they're doing the people's work. No, they're not. I heard that the other day, someone saying about Martha McSally. Well, she's doing the people's work. And I said, she hasn't done my work. She's sponsoring legislation to further expand a federalist police state by saying that she wants to control the doping of horse races under the Commerce Clause because they cross state lines. Well, so do football players. Are we going to control them? Well, it's true. It's commerce. So where is if we get back to just why was the Constitution written? What did our founding fathers actually experience in their lifetime and through history to bring them to this point? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. I don't want to get off topic, but with the Constitution, I get a little confused by it. Several years ago, I went to the State Capitol Law Library, and they happen to have a display of constitutions. And I took the time to look at them and look through them a little bit, and the title pages were all different. There was one that said, "The Constitution of the United States of America." There was another one that just said, "Constitution of the United," without the word "the." Some stated United States, others stated United States of America, some were capital letters, some were a mixture of both. There appeared to be at least 6 different documents. And so now,
Well, you said just the headings, or did you actually compare the body? Did you actually compare articles?
I didn't go
And did you clauses?
that much. But I know that years ago, I'm dealing with a lot of memory losses, so I know that they took the Constitution.
Welcome to my world.
Took out the whatever amendment out of the 13, changed the title, they cut and pasted it, But it did occur that there was like 6 different ones, and so now I'm like, oh, which one do I use?
You have to go to the original. This is a I'll give you this. This is an exact duplicate copy of the original. That's the one you use. Because it's like, we're going all over the place on this today, I hope you don't mind. But it's like, that's the danger of the digital age. They can rewrite anything they want. You have to have full copies, and I do, of the Federalist Papers.
And they were really old books, old.
Do you have a copy? Okay, you can have it. It's worth. So, but you have to go to the original document. There's this one, and I think the one you have are actual. It says right in there, these are actual copies from the original, word for word, word for word. Yes, sir.
My concern is similar to her situation. In my readings, I'm kind of confused on it. If I read it right, we had the Constitution, and then President Lincoln in 1861, they changed the upper and lower case and all that, played a little game, and so we think we're voting for somebody with the original Constitution, but these are really officers of that second Constitution, whatever it is. Or something.
There's only one, yeah.
Well, there's one original. But is there any legal validity to the idea that Lincoln
no.
swapped out stuff back in 1861?
No.
That's just bogus talk, huh?
I believe so. I believe so. Because every copy that I have ordered and purchased for our CSPOA, we've picked this one and that one, but this one, because it says actual copy, word for word, of the original document.
There's some sort of, they're saying some substitution because some are uppercase and lowercase letters, blah, 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 but you kind of step right over that. But also, a second thought, I want to throw out a second thought, I've mentioned it here before. I don't have it memorized, but these government officials, governors, police chiefs, you name it, judges, they can be personally sued when they violate their oath of office.
It's more than that. They can...
Their houses can be taken from them and stuff like that. It seems like somebody ought to jump on that.
I don't know about that. But here's what the 14th Amendment says. If you look at 14th Amendment paragraph 3 or 4.
What about Supreme Court cases?
I don't care about Supreme Court cases. I'll tell you why. because our Supreme Court cases are as stare decisis. It's not law, it's opinions. When a Supreme Court comes up with an opinion, it's supposed to be the state is supposed to evaluate the opinion and compare it to the Constitution and make out modifications, if needed, to their law based on the Constitution. An opinion is not law. It's an opinion. But that's how we got Roe versus Wade. It was an opinion implemented as law, and it's not how it should be done. But anyway, so I look at the Constitution because the people are the final arbiters of the Constitution and its intent, not the court. Because if we're going to allow 5 justices to dictate to the entire country what they say is law, that's how we got Obamacare. Our state legislators are there to interpose on the people's behalf any usurpation of power. James Madison thought that the state legislators would be the most powerful person in the universe to intercede on the people's behalf, and when the federal government, hold on, supersedes their power and expresses unlawful, unconstitutional on the will on the states. If the states who created the federal government have no control over the federal government, then the Constitution is useless.
Let me put a thought up. They're found guilty of treason when they violate their oath of office.
What is treason? Article 3, Section 3. What is treason? Do you know what it is?
Well,
So you have to, this is it. If we're going to take an opinion as gospel without doing our own investigation, we're just as guilty, my opinion. Treason is a requirement that 2 or more people witness an act of an individual giving aid or comfort to an enemy. And there's a couple other phrases in there, but look at what treason is. When I was working as a probation officer, I couldn't just make up an interpretation on a law and arrest somebody on it. That's not what we want as a society, but yet that's what's happening. If we have 15 cops come in here and they all have different interpretations of what the law says, and they make arrests for people on different things because, well, this is what the law says. Well, that's not what, we have chaos. You have to go to the original document, the law, and the intent of the law, and is that law that was written in compliance with the Constitution and the rights of the people. Article 2, Section 2 of Arizona State Constitution, which is our rights, says 3 things. Do you know what that is? As anybody comes in here running for office, you ask them this. What is the 3 things granted to you, and where does it come from? And what is the purpose of government? Where does your power come from? And what is a lawful law? They should be able to tell you 3 things. The purpose of government, or excuse me, the number 1, all political power is inherent in the people. All political power is inherent in the people. You, me, what is political power? Political power is the process of creating laws that govern society. I'm paraphrasing, but that's sum it up in a nutshell. So that comes from us. Only just laws are valid and with the consent of the people. The government derives its just powers from the consent of the people. That means we consent. I don't consent to Obamacare fining me under taxation law because they can tax when the 16th Amendment, we used to tax on apportionment, right? Number of people in the state. What do we tax now on the 16th Amendment? Thank you, early 1900 Roosevelts, when they started screwing with our Constitution and a republic. We got the 16th Amendment, the 17th Amendment, which says now they can tax you on income. Well, ladies and gentlemen, in my opinion, that's socialist. They're coming to you as an individual. That's a direct tax on you and your income, which under Article 1, Section 9 says prohibitions on the federal government says no direct tax shall be imposed. Now we get to the 17th Amendment, senators. They took that from the states. and made it now an elected position rather than the control of our state senators appointing a senator to represent the state. We don't have state representation because of the 17th Amendment. Now, the 16th Amendment, they tax you on your income. That, if you look at Obamacare, just a Supreme Court decision that says that you can tax. Well, according to the 16th Amendment, which I don't like, they can tax you on your income. Where does Obamacare come into play on taxation? Are you earning?
If Justice Roberts wrote a decision on the Supreme Court said it's a tax.
What am I saying, though? I know that, but what am I saying? The only thing they can tax you on under the 16th Amendment is an income. And Article 1, Section 9 prohibits a direct tax. My opinion. So, are you earning? Are you getting paid to have medical care? That's my point. How can they tax you on something you're not earning?
And also in my light readings on this income, it means income into the United States.
Yes.
Originally, not
we're
income into your household.
correct, but let's talk about just Obamacare is my point. They're saying they can tax you on, so they're taxing you, but in reality it's a fine because you don't have it. So how can they tax you on something you don't have? When Justice Roberts also said you cannot penalize by a fine because it violates the Commerce Clause. So they did a double standard on this whole thing, and it's unconstitutional just on the basis that they're taxing you on something you don't have. So that's my point. Getting back to this. Does it make sense? Okay. Yes.
Your legal arguments are impeccable. I believe the reason none of this is working is because we are in a Bolshevik revolution in this country. In a Bolshevik, they're careless about any law, any right, any decency, even the right to life. They murdered all the people in Russia. And then the second thing on Roberts, consider maybe he is, because he's a Republican supposedly, he may be under blackmail.
Yes. Remember Obama's what was it, his second address? His first term, he pushed through, his first year, I believe, he pushed through Obamacare. When he gave, oh, okay. Yeah, that's probably better for you, right?
Just turn another one on.
Okay.
All right. Maybe pause for a moment. We'll be set. Yeah, the batteries do die on them. We can actually switch the.
Yeah, that's what's.
There we go. Ready to switch it, Mike? There we go. That should work.
Can you hear?
He's going to adjust the volume.
Can you hear me? Testing. I don't know how much time I have, or how much you want me to take.
You have to be out of here before noon.
11. I better wrap up pretty quick then. Okay. What was I saying? When Obama gave his first public address to Congress on the State of the Union,
It's 10 o'clock, we got an hour.
remember we had, it's 10, we have an hour, and we got to be out by 12.
Go for an hour, that's fine.
Okay. All right. Well, it's up to them. Remember, the Supreme Court justices sit in the front. Remember that? And Obama, first time a sitting president, addressed Supreme Court justices, said, when he was talking about Obamacare, his legislation and all this nonsense, and he said, and I know the Supreme Court will do the right thing on the decision of Obamacare. Remember that? So something, in my opinion, since that was the first time that ever happened, and healthcare's control of the health of the nation is one of the ideas under the communist papers, manifesto. Control education, change government through policy. This is what they're doing. This is why I'm running. I don't mind being the whipping boy. Anybody has read my blogs on, how many of you read Frosty's Briefs? Oh my gosh. No. Frosty's Republican Briefs. Republican Briefs. How many of you read that? Go to republicanbriefs.org. Sign up for her newsletter. I write in there frequently. So a lot of people write, not a lot, but several people write in there frequently. But I write in there, 2 years ago, I was writing a series called The Republican Party Has Left the Room. Can we go up to the Republican AZGOP?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I pose a question before you get out there?
Yeah.
The DUI checkpoints are unconstitutional, photo enforcement for speeding is unconstitutional. How do you resolve that?
Photo enforcement is number one. How can you confront your accuser? It's a camera.
You can't.
You have a right to confront your accuser.
Exactly.
Let me ask you this. How many of you have had an IRS audit? Did you volunteer to do that? No, I mean, when they call you up, they don't ask. They say, we have you scheduled for an audit.
And
What should you say?
when I wrote back, I said that time is not convenient for me.
No, what should you say?
Hell no. That,
What is the order? What is Fourth Amendment?
well, you can listen to that. Yeah.
You shall be secure in your, every person shall be secure in their persons, property, and effects against unreasonable search and seizure unless affected by a warrant, presented upon a warrant, signed with an affidavit. What is an affidavit? Law enforcement? An affidavit is a testimony, a signed statement from a police officer saying that he believes a crime has been committed. This is a crime we're looking at, and this individual has committed it, and this is the evidence we are looking for specifically, and this is a location we believe it to be. So when you get a search warrant, you're searching for specific evidence, and you have a specific location that you can look in. It is not a fishing expedition. We're looking in the office for papers and effects. What are you doing in the bathroom? Correct? Okay, so if the IRS calls you, where's their search warrant? That's fine, you can do an audit, but I need a warrant. My opinion, and I'm sticking to it. Sir?
Well, it's also against your Fifth Amendment rights.
It is, because you're being forced to testify against yourself.
Exactly. Now, I think by the end of your presentation today, I hope that we'll all see that metaphorically speaking, if not actually speaking, that we have two constitutions. We have the original Constitution, which was written by the Founding Fathers, and then we have the Constitution, which was rewritten by the Supreme Court activists. Legislation of the Supreme Court.
Correct, and that's what.
That's what's happening in the country.
And if you look at the three branches of government, Article 1, the legislature, Article 2, the executive, Article 3, the judiciary, there's checks and balances on the first two. There's no real, and this is one of the complaints of the anti-federalists, is that there's no real check and balance on the Supreme Court, except the people. So herein lies our problem. What I started to say earlier is that we have probably, I know the greater majority of all Supreme Court decisions are always a split, 5-4, right? So we got 5 people giving an opinion, they don't write law, they give an opinion that impacts the whole country, and everyone just goes with it.
Well, I understand the 16th Amendment was never even properly read.
That's an argument that came up, yes. That they did, and they didn't log the vote. From my understanding. Okay, but anyway, it's there. It's been there since 1912, somewhere around there. Over 107 years, so.
What you just mentioned when you said 5 people vote on a constitution, which is nuts.
They vote on it.
That is the epitome of Bolshevism. It's the same as using the Talmud to decide what the Tanakh says. They reinterpret it to nothing. It's just purely wrong.
Not really, because the opinion is not supposed to be law. If we addressed it according to what the intent of what it is that, well, hey, you know, you may want to go back and rewrite this because our opinion is it's not in compliance with the Constitution.
But the administrative branch of government is bound by the Supreme
Now that's the fourth branch of government, the administrative branch, which isn't in the Constitution.
Well, executive branch, I'm sorry.
We're talking about administrative law now, which is TSA, which is unconstitutional.
But I thought the executive branch was bound by the Supreme Court.
No. The executive branch is, his oath of office president is to execute faithfully and to the best of his ability his oath of office and the laws of this land. Something like that, I'm paraphrasing. So he's to faithfully execute the laws of the land. Who writes the laws?
Supreme Court.
Who writes the laws? Under the Constitution. Under the Constitution. Hillary would be in jail under the Constitution. Under the Constitution, the judiciary branch, under Article 1, writes the laws. Article 1, Section was, all judicial responsibilities are of this branch. They write the laws, not the government. Not the president doesn't write laws, although they do with their executive orders constitutionally. And then the Congress has effectively obfuscated some of their responsibilities by giving nebulous, well, not so much nebulous, but vague laws and allowing the executive branch to interpret those and effectively write their own policies that become law. They're not supposed to, there's new court cases, there's new decisions coming on that as well. Getting away, that say we got to go back to the true constitutional practice that only the legislative branch writes law, not allowing the executive branch through their executive offices to write policies that affect law, like BLM, like EPA, for instance, created by executive order. Well, that was a decision by the Supreme Court that became law. But anyway, let's go to Republican Party. If you'll scroll down, our values. Click on values. We were there before. Okay. Yes, sir.
We haven't been operating on constitutional money since 1964 when me and his doctors took us off silk.
Well, I went back farther than that with the New Deal.
Well,
with
Roosevelt got the gold.
Yeah, with Roosevelt's new. Huh?
And Johnson took away the silk.
Oh, well, that was Nixon that actually took us off the gold standard.
No, Roosevelt already took this gold off.
But that. Well, the Constitution allows us to use gold as our trading. Yes.
We're on a debt system now.
Well, okay.
And have you ever checked out the Admiralty law? All these flags we got, we have in the courtrooms.
That
Admiralty flag.
I understand what you're saying, but there's some conflict on that. I don't want to get into the design of the flag and the fringe and everything right now, but there's some difference of opinion on that. The Constitution doesn't say the flag specifically, but let's get to this. Here's what irritates me the most when we look at the Republican Party. I'm not going to waste my time attacking the Democrats. Who in here doesn't know what the Democrats are about? Raise your hand. They're communists. They're progressives. Progressive is a new term for a Democrat now. They're open about it. They don't like the Constitution. They don't like individual rights. They like power and control over your health, your education. By the way, Obama's the one who federalized the education loan program. It was private, remember? Banks and private organizations gave educational loans to students, and they were to pay it back. If the federal government takes it over, what do they have the power to do? Federalize education. Now they can say it's free. You got a loan? Never mind, we'll waive that. Another carrot dangled in front of the unsuspecting or unwilling to recognize trap of the individual willing to bite that.
It's called something for nothing.
Yes. Anyway, so we know what the Democrats are all about. They want to destroy the sovereignty of the people and the nation, flood with open borders, which is another, someone was talking about voting. That's another thing. If you look at the McCarran-Walter Act of 1952, and if you look at the Obama motor voter law of 1996, I think it was. We'll talk about that if we have time. Republican Party. Here's our values. The Constitution should be honored, valued, and upheld. Number 2, they say we're an exceptional country, number 1. Well, that's dependent on most of these other things that define our exception, I believe. Would you agree? How can we be an exceptional country if we disregard everything else that's underneath? My opinion. So anyway, this is what the Republicans believe, that the Constitution should be upheld and honored. Yet 78, 74, 78 Republicans signed on to H.R. 838. It was the Republican Party that gave us the Patriot Act. It was the Republican Party that gave us the real ID, which is the same thing Hitler did during World War II. He nationalized their ID. States are independent sovereign states. We come up with how we're going to identify our citizens within our state, a sovereign nation, how we're going to make identification for our citizens. That's still good among other states because Article 4 says I'm paraphrasing, the rights, privileges, and liberties of every citizen of one state is good in all the states. So our ID will be accepted there. We don't need a national ID. Just a second, I can't focus on things. So they gave us the real ID, which is a digitized, algorithmic picture of your face that goes in a database, fusion centers, FBI, CIA, they all have everything on you, and H.R. 838. Put it together. Okay, so if we go back, leaders should serve people, not special interest. Oh my God, just cross that out. We know the truth. Don't you think so? Who disagrees? Who is not representing special interest over the people when they go to the Capitol? I'll give you an example. Remember last 2017, we had a state senator from LD 22. Initials are D, last name initials L. The only sole sponsor for a law wanting to mandate that each and every one of you that gets a license or renews a license shall give a DNA swab. Oh my God. David Livingston, I have to throw it out there, is Republican. Leaders should serve people, not special interests. 30% of his donations from campaign funds came from insurance companies. Who would benefit from DNA swab? Thank you. Families and communities should be strong and free from government intrusion. Hello, H.R. 838. Hello, Patriot Act. Hello, Real ID. Hello, IRS. Families and communities should be strong and free from government intrusion. It's institutional of traditional marriage as a foundation of society. How many of you have to get permission from the government before you get married? Really? Huh? Well, what does that license do? Could you get married without that license?
Yes.
Is it going to be considered illegal? The government cares. So if you try to go get a divorce, what do they ask for?
Marriage certificate.
Okay, that's my point. That's all. You don't have to get a license, but is the government going to recognize it as legal marriage? My point. Government should be smaller, smarter, and more efficient. Who are they applying this value?
Hell no.
Okay, my point. This is the problem we have. Healthcare decisions should be made by us and our doctors. Who signed on to Arizona's Obamacare money and assistance?
Isn't it a Republican majority? I mean, at that time?
Yes.
Huh. You're right.
We've had a Republican majority in both House, Senate, and the presidency until last time. Remember? We had all three. And for years, we kept hearing, give us control of the power of the House and Senate, and we will repeal Obamacare.
Yeah, right.
Now, but even before that, it was, you get these surveys in your mail from the Republican Party with check the box, what you find most important. I should have brought it. I highlighted about 5 of those things. Like, are you kidding me? One of them is on Obamacare, should we fix it or repeal and replace it? Does the Republican Party value the Constitution? Okay. Does the Constitution give them any authority to do anything with your health care for the federal government? No. So how can the Republicans at RNC turn around and ask you? Messaging is powerful. When they ask you a question on something they have no authority to do, but they phrase it in a way that they do, that's manipulation. So they say, and that's political. They say, should we fix it or repeal it and then replace it with something new? They have no authority to do either one, but that's a question they ask you. So my concern is that to me, we need to get back to the Constitution. We need to get back to the true intent of what government is to do for the people. When they ratified the Constitution and were discussing it, they were afraid of a two-party system. There was no parties involved because their intent was people will run for office to represent America in Congress under the Constitution, not as a Democrat, not as a Republican. How many of you have read Alexis de Tocqueville? Okay, did you see his thesis paper he did on America's government, two-party system? Everything he said in there is true. When you have two parties that are constantly fighting for political legitimacy among themselves, and none of it is in regards to the Constitution, that's tyranny, in my opinion. Because now the party, and then when that party gets in office, they control the people and the government. And if it's not under the Constitution, what is it? Republican Party, as I said earlier, gave us the Patriot Act, the Real ID, Homeland Security, TSA. We operated just fine without the TSA. Look at it from this point of view. Is the TSA a military installation or is it a civilian? Under the Constitution, what authority do they have to have control over ports, forts? Under the military clauses, correct? Those are civilian. That's commerce. It's international travel. It may have something to do with commerce and it may not. But it's travel of the people. That doesn't mean they can regulate and control who gets on and off a plane for security. That's the state, in my opinion. The state has control over our airports that are civilian. We have Phoenix PD there, do we not? Who controlled it before TSA? It's a federal encroachment in a federal police state. Have you all seen the movie 1984? Ladies and gentlemen, the pigs are in charge. They're running it. I'm more equal than you are. Remember that? When the pigs first started running, they said, everybody, we want equality for all of us. All animals should be equal. And then once they got in power, what happened? Pigs got the beds. The animals got the floor. Remember? We're more equal. We're all equal, but we're more equal than you are. That's what we're seeing in this mentality today.
That goes back to admiralty law. There's different levels of law. I'm not a lawyer either, but admiralty law is the ocean fronts and the ports and stuff like that, and they're coming in under admiralty law and they have to be constitutional law.
That's what we're operating.
But that's when that's during time of war or conflict where this location, then that now becomes under admiralty law.
But it's also been misapplied in 1905 Rio Grande River. They decided it was navigable stream, so under Admiralty law, yeah, it was only navigable seasonally if you had a canoe, because there was whatever. I'm just saying that there's different authorities of laws and
Okay, yes, sir.
Isn't it true that under maritime law, the Constitution does not exist?
Under martial law,
Maritime law.
I don't know. Has maritime law, to be honest with you, has maritime law ever been declared in the United States?
I don't know. I mean, every flag that has a fringe around it is a maritime.
That's what he's talking about, Admiralty law. And that's when that from my understanding, the intent of that is to show that the United States has declared this temporarily under our law and control, because it's either been conquered or stabilized, taken out of distress. But anyway, the United States Navy is occupying that territory. If anybody on the video is listening can add to that, go ahead. But my understanding is that's only when we're out in foreign countries and we are controlling that area, we put that flag there to say this is under American control temporarily.
that's
Flag exists in every court.
Because of this is what he was mentioning earlier. And there's interpretations that I've researched this on the internet too. My thing is, I want to pick and choose my battles of most significance. Am I going to spend my time arguing about the yellow fringe on the law, or am I going to spend my time debating and discussing the actual Constitution and the effects on us and what we can do to take back our country, our state? Yes.
I'm piggybacking off of both of you. The flags are different. The one with the gold fringe and the eagle, that's actually a war flag. If you take the regular flag without the gold fringe, without the eagle, if you take that into a courtroom, put it on the table, the judge will order you to remove it. If you don't, the judge walks out of the courtroom because they have no jurisdiction with the regular flag.
And the eagle is supposed to be reserved for the president. That's a presidential emblem, the eagle, from my understanding as well, on top of the flag.
It's Admiralty. It's not the same flag as...
The fringe, I'm talking about the eagle on top of the pole.
It's the same thing.
Okay, anyway.
I mean, if you look at the Boy Scouts of America and all the flags that they got, they all have the eagle.
But like I said, if you do, I hate Google. If you do a Bing search, you'll find different interpretations and understandings. And I did an actual search on the congressional website, and I couldn't find it. If you see,
Like I said, if you take a regular flag,
but where? Yeah, but would you have to look at the source? Where is that?
the judge will freak out.
Based on what?
Or the judge loses. They cannot be in
Based, but in my,
I was there.
okay, but my question is, on what authority did you see that written that dictates that? It's not just, that's where I say, being investigations for so many years, you got to find information that substantiates it.
That's the flag that the Pentagon uses, which
Again, this is hearsay. I understand what you're saying, but for my mind, I want to say, give me a citation of where it's at.
an issue with the pledge, so they called the Pentagon. That's the only flag that they use because they're the War Department.
That's, okay, but that's, again, that's Pentagon.
Back to the Rio Grande River in 1905, they were building a dam, north
Okay.
Las Cruces, and private builders and the federal government come in, Department of Interior, and use the Admiralty laws, and it's navigable river, a threat to national security.
That doesn't mean it was right. That doesn't mean it was correct.
I understand that's for the smoke they blow, and then they heck with the Constitution because it's a national defense item under Admiralty law, when you can't even do a canoe 12 months out of the year.
And you have to understand, what is the purpose of the Defense Department?
National security.
Defending our borders against invasion and defending us from outside sources. And if you look in the Constitution, what is their purpose? So I'm saying we have to get back to the basic fundamentals of what the intent. What did our founding fathers live through? What did they experience? What has their recent history brought them to at this point with other countries? And they cite many. If you read the Federalist Papers, they're always citing historical perspectives in France in England from, you know, a couple hundred years before them that shows a pattern of where they're at that brought them from their current experience to what they need to do today.
And it goes back to unalienable. One President Johnson, Jefferson, one's unalienable, the other's inalienable, same words.
Yeah, and I'm not...
It's from God. It's not by the permission of government, it's from God.
But what... you're right. You're right. But we have to ultimately be the ones that decide what we're going to accept, because the government was established to protect our rights. Let me read one more thing. Oh, well, I need your Constitution. And I need my readers, wherever they are. Oh my gosh, I must be getting old. No, I had them on. Did you, anybody, oh, I put them over here. See? See? I need to put a clapper on them. Okay. Declaration of Independence. I'll read 3 paragraphs. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and the nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Even the slaves, they had provision there that they would implement a tax after 1805, because they knew the southern states would not ratify the Constitution if they immediately abolished slavery. Our founding fathers hated it. But they knew they couldn't get the Constitution passed if they, but they're saying right here, all men are created equal. That they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted. Where did I see? I lost my page here. Good Lord. Sorry, people. Oh, instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That's in our state constitution. What a novel idea, right? So where do all these actions that they do, where do they come into play? Where do they, thank you.
The government exists for
It's like a narcissistic parent. I gave you this. I gave you that. Remember Obama? You didn't build that. We did. I gave you the tools to do that. It's a narcissistic parent. I gave you that food. I gave you those clothes. Now you do this for me.
That's old-fashioned people think the government exists for the benefit. No. Old-fashioned people exist for the idea that the government exists for the benefit of the people. How now? Where the other people think that the government, no, the people exist for the benefit of the government. The Bolsheviks, we're probably
1962, John F. Kennedy. Don't ask what the government can do for you, but what can you do for your government? Hold it. Let me finish. You're absolutely right. That's what they said over 230 years ago. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, destructive to their original purpose, protecting the rights of the people, preserving your right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, and now this is true. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light of transient causes. I don't think we have transient causes. We've been dealing with this for a long time. And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, which we have been doing. Mankind is more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces of design to reduce them under absolute despotism. It is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards. This is supposed to be our guards for our safety, for not control, but from foreign nations, and for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of their colonies. I won't read any more, but you get the idea. The governments, this is ours. All political power is inherent in the people. Bottom line. Sir, yes?
You say you want to get back to the Constitution.
Yeah.
When there's no admonishment or I don't know how you say that, to the violators, they're not held accountable, you're never going to do it.
But what we can do, what I've been doing is I talk to groups, big or small, like this. I have a regular presentation, but because we've had so many things happening, look at the circus going on in Congress with this impeachment. It's a kabuki theater. It really is. And it's criminal in that the DNC paid Fusion GPS for this information, and then it's a conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's been proven.
It's actually sedition.
Well, it's treason. Well, if you look at...
It sounds like treason, it feels like treason, and it acts like treason, but not under the legal definition.
Well, sedition is to overthrow a government.
That's what they're trying
But
to do.
we have a foreign national, what's his name, the MI6 guy. Steele, who hates Trump, Trump was now an elected official of our government. When you overthrow a president, are you overthrowing a government? Are you an enemy? Are you an enemy of a country when you're trying to take out the elected leader of that country and reestablish a new leader?
Yeah, but we're not at war with Great Britain.
It doesn't have to be war. Are we at war with Iran? Did we declare war with Iran? Are we in a legal declared war with Iran? So let me ask you, how can the Iran deal have a proposed agreement that Congress never read that gives Iran, who openly states death to America, burns our flag? I'm getting to treason here. And Obama gives billions and billions of dollars to an enemy who's openly declared they are our enemy. Is that treason? And then how can our Congress, who has to have 2/3 vote of the Senate to ratify agreements with other countries, go down to a simple majority, or actually don't even make a decision and allow it to happen? This is how far away we've gotten from all this.
But Randy, I think the word war in here explicitly means Congress declaring war.
Exactly.
So we haven't declared war against Iran or any of these other...
But it doesn't say in Article 3, Section 3, what does it say? Read it.
Article 3, Section 3.
Does it say war, or does it just say enemy?
Treason against the United States shall be consistent only in levying war against them or in the adhering to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort.
Or adhering to their enemies.
They're financing the enemies.
What is or?
Look,
You can do...
I'm on your side.
No, I'm saying legally too. When I was a probation officer looking in court, and there's going to be the Supreme Court's going to have different interpretations, and then 20 years from now they're going to have different interpretations because it's dependent on the ideology of what they're talking about, of who's behind it. My ideology is strict constitutionalist, and when you look at the term "or," that's saying this is a condition, or this being a condition.
Okay.
So I'll talk to you about it afterwards, but let's not get sidetracked.
I want to say one thing.
Okay.
If you take and try to convict these people on treason, you're going to have a long court case.
Well, I'm not saying we have to. I'm just saying, in my opinion, treason, it was as far as treason.
Sedition is an open and shut slam dunk.
I agree with you, but I'm saying, in my opinion, they went as far as treason because it's against our country and they're giving help to an enemy. In my opinion, right now the Democrat Party is an enemy because they're creating criminal acts, fabricating information, making it up, using our resources. When I say our resources, they're using the FBI, which is an agency to protect the people, against us. No, not yet. Please, we're getting sidetracked because I'm running out of time.
But that's one thing. This is what's happened in the last 2.5 years. It's the greatest criminal act that's ever happened to this republic. That being said, probably in the history of the world. The only thing that could be greater than this, if these people aren't brought to justice,
Well,
that would be even bigger.
and that's our next step. You're right. We have a two-tier justice system. We have a justice system affected on the people, and we have a separate justice system considered for those in power, depending on which side of the aisle they sit on. Correct? Okay. That's tyranny, folks. Again, there's a lot of tyranny occurring here, but that's where we are. I agree with you. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying, in my opinion, I think we should go farther if we could. What time is it?
10:42.
Okay. The other topic I want to talk about is the information standards that we have. We have a First Amendment right, do we not? And we can say things, but we're responsible for the actions of our words, correct? I believe that. Here we have, how many of you have seen this? A is for activism. I'll pass it around. This is a book for children, and you can go get it at Barnes & Noble. I don't know if it's in our school libraries. It shouldn't be. But Z, it goes through the alphabet. G is for grassroots. Grassroots, where do we hear that? E is for equal rights. Little d is for democracy. More voting, you'll agree. Dictators detest it.
What's under R?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. What's under R? Okay. H is for healthy food and human right. Healthy food, how they jump from healthy food to human right. Messaging is strong. I is for indigenous and immigrant. Together we stand tall. And that's true, legal. Kings are fine for story time. Knights are fun to play. But when we make decisions, we will choose the people's way. LGBTQ. Love who you choose. Love who you choose, meaning I think what they're saying is love who you choose to be. I'll be female today. I'll be male tomorrow. I'll use this bathroom. I'll use that bathroom. Self-identity. That's what they're saying. Love who you choose, because love is true. Liberate your notions and limited emotions. Celebrate with pride our link of devotion. What? I don't know. Let's see. What did you say? R. No is for no, the fist. Communism. No is for no, no, no. Yes to what we want. Yes to what we want. They're yes, exactly. Don't listen to anything that contradicts what you want, what you believe. Shout them out. Open minds. Now this one really gets me. Open minds operate best. Critical thinking over test. Wisdom can't be memorized. Educate, agitate, organize. Educate, agitate, organize. P is for peace march. Protest to our children. Power to the people. Yeah. Q is for question. Questioning, coercion. This is exactly what they're doing. Question that, folks. Querying qualities counter false assertions. Wow, but don't you dare query any quality of their assertion. Only they have that right. Radical Reds, the headline said. Ruinous rioters, the rumors spread. Rabble-rousing riffraff. Really? So there's questioning. We can protest. We can create a ruckus. Don't listen, but they're villainizing our right to create a ruckus. They're villainizing Antifa, our right to go smash windows. We're just rioting. Our right to turn over cars and beat police and beat oppositions with chains.
Yeah. Women and children and innocent bystanders. Oh,
yeah. T is for trans.
Oh,
for trains, tiaras, tulips, tractors, and tigers too. Trust in the true, the he, she, they, that is you. Uh-huh. V is for vox. Who knows what vox is? When you vox somebody. That means you give all their personal information out publicly. Is that dox?
That's D-O-X.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So let's find out what...
I think is like a voice.
What? Did you say fox? No, I said vox. Did you say box? No, vox. Rocks, blocks, socks, vox. Vox of the people. Voice of the populi. Better go see the letter D. Oh, let me go see. See, they're educating me. Thank you, they're educating me. What's letter D? I thought this was fun. D. Little d, democracy. More voting, you'll agree. Dictators detest, so vox. It's against democracy. What does it say?
Your eyes are younger than mine.
It's a noun. The barely there falsetto, vox. I don't know. They're confusing the children enough to make them just, okay, I'll accept it. Wondrous world, wondrous we cannot be whole, we cannot be free unless we delight in diversity. Well, we had diversity. X is for Malcolm, as in Malcolm X. History's lessons can be complex. Remember Parks, remember King, remember Malcolm, and let freedom ring. Wasn't it the Republican Party who fought for women's right to vote? Wasn't it the Republican Party who fought to free the slaves? Wasn't it the Republican Party who fought for civil liberties in the 60s? Wasn't it the Democrat Party who fought to keep the slaves? Yes. Wasn't it the Democrat Party who fought to prevent women to vote?
Yes.
Wasn't it the Democrat Party, Ku Klux Klan, that fought to keep separate but equal because they didn't want them all sitting together? How can they rewrite history and teach it to our children? Well, okay, now here it is. Z is for Zapatista, of course. Zapatista is a left-wing militant group in a community in Mexico. Radical, strong, more communistic than socialist in their values, and this is who published this book.
I think they're close to the Mexico-Guatemala border.
I have it on my phone, but where their Zapatista is at.
Did you get that from Pat?
No, I got it from...
It's an inside joke.
No, I got it from... I paid $10 for it.
Yeah, it's
Now, that's kind of contradictory to their free terms. So anyway, the other thing I want to talk about real quick is who has heard of Muslim Brotherhood in America?
Oh, yeah.
Who has heard of the U.S. versus Holy Land Foundation? Probably, okay, I've been talking about this for years. In 2009, the U.S. versus Holy Land Foundation case was adjudicated. Javier Ortiz was a Supreme Court judge, district judge, heard the case. And this was a case where 80 banker boxes, 80 banker boxes was found in a sub-basement, under the basement, of an individual who was stopped on the Chesapeake Bay Bridge in the early, I think it was very early 2002, somewhere around there. They had already initiated a case against the Holy Land Foundation as the largest terrorist funding organization within the United States, sending money to Hamas. So they found this gentleman they just happened to find. He was driving across the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, and he had a woman in the passenger seat, full Islamic garb. They were driving fairly slow, and they were taking pictures of the support beams on the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. So they stopped him, ran him, found out that he was wanted on a warrant in the U.S. versus Holy Land Foundation case as a material witness. They got a search warrant for his house, and they went there and they found a sub-basement that had 80 banker boxes of material belonging to the Muslim Brotherhood. It had financial records, organizational charts, pictures, videos, audio tapes showing the whole organization of the Muslim Brotherhood. One of those was this book here, and this is an actual document from the court case. This is evidence number, it's identified as 2003 was the court case. This is evidence number 85, and it's the explanatory memorandum. Basically, to sum it up, is this is from their introductory. The process of settlement in any country is a civilization jihadist process with all the word means. The Ikhwan, which is Muslim in the Muslim Brotherhood member, must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within, kind of like communism, and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands and the hands of the believers so that it is eliminated and God's religion, Allah, is made victorious over all other religions, So this whole book is doing it, and there's a section in there that outlines every organization at that time. There were 29.
Randy, what happened in that case?
It was found true. It was appealed to a 3-court panel, appellate court, and unanimously upheld. And those convictions, 118 counts, were found true. What happened was, that was phase 1 of the trial. Because they were already in trial at the time when they found all this information, the trial was against the Holy Land Foundation, which was under the Muslim Brotherhood. The organizational chart brought in all these other organizations under the Muslim Brotherhood. CARE, Council on American Islamic Relations, ISNA, American Society of North America, NATE, North American Islamic Trust, is the bank of the Muslim Brotherhood and owns many of the mosques in America. They said, and Javier Ortiz said, that the federal government has shown ample evidence that the Muslim Brotherhood and these organizations under it are designed to destroy America from within, are an unindicted co-conspirator in the Holy Land Foundation. So the Muslim Brotherhood was tied into that criminal case of terrorist funding in 2009. It was appealed and found by a 3-court panel judge to be true. And he said that the federal government showed ample evidence that CARE, NATE, ISNA, and the American Society of Palestine, which is no longer around anymore because it was dissolved in this court case, are unindicted co-conspirators in the Holy Land Foundation case. So they're unindicted co-conspirators means that they have enough evidence. They didn't indict them because they didn't want to complicate the case that was pending and jeopardize any convictions they had. They were going to indict leadership of CARE, leadership of NATE, leadership of ISNA after this was settled. But guess what happened? January 2009, this was done November 2008. Phase 2 was to occur the next year. Obama took office. And that's a whole separate presentation that I do on that alone. I have pictures, documents, everything. So CARE is Hamas. And yet they're freely on television, the representatives, the leadership of CARE on we have the 3rd vice chair of the Arizona Democrat Party was a founding member of CARE in Arizona. This court case has proven that CARE is a member of the Muslim Brotherhood, and their sole purpose is to destroy America. And they're running, and they're in office in Congress.
Using our Constitution.
Absolutely. Yes, you had your hand up.
Muslim religion dictates that if a Muslim kills a Christian, he gets immediate sainthood. Why is that not considered a major threat?
Yeah.
Right.
They're criminal syndicate.
You're asking, I can't tell you why it's not.
The Muslim religion is the only religion in the world that says if you disagree, we get to kill you. In fact, they must. Allah is the pagan moon god. That's why they use the moon symbol. He's not the God in the Bible. They're supposed to kill. They must. They must kill you.
Well, actually tax you. They can charge you a jizya, I think that's what it's called, which is a tax.
And it's not 72 virgins, it's a 72-year-old virgin. In case anybody's inclined. I got it.
Are you looking forward to something?
No, I got it. Seriously, I got to get to it.
Okay, okay. All right, yes, ma'am.
Going along with what you're saying is
Thank you.
regarding rioting and protesting. At first glance, sometimes it seems like it's a good thing, but it's actually not.
See the book?
And it even goes back to biblical. There are evil practices designed by evil men with the intent of destroying and tearing apart families, neighborhoods, communities, and nations.
Yeah, and that's where we're at today.
So the writing isn't, like I said, at first glance, they oftentimes seem good, but they're not.
No, and look,
The root of it is evil. Never seen good.
the communist, and when my wife shared this story with me, they had a program in schools when she was a kid called the Young Pioneers in Russia. And the Young Pioneer program was an indoctrination continuing the Communist Party mindset through the education, because if you don't capture the minds of the youth, next generations will be lost, or if you capture them at the youth, next generations will be gained with that ideology. And they had that, and there was a child, I think it was a girl, that they had a policy in Russia called see something, say something. Where have we heard that?
Right.
See something, say something. So this little girl, I think she was 10, because of the pressure of government, loyalty to the party, loyalty to the party, loyalty to the ideology, loyalty to the advancement of the people, control of the it was illegal to speak ill of government. Kind of like it's illegal for conservatives to speak ill of the Republic, of the Democrat Party, of the Democrat ideology, because they shout you down, they yell at you, they don't want to let you give your opinion because it contradicts what they say, and they can't articulate an effective, logical explanation to justify their position. So this little girl hears her father and a neighbor talking about what they don't like about government, the Communist Party. She goes to school the next day under the new Pioneer program, reports it to her teacher reports it to the government official, and they pick up the father and the neighbor, and they're sent to a gulag in Siberia for 2 years as a punishment. And they held this girl as an idol for the other young pioneers of loyalty and patriotism to follow. So when we capture these books, you're influencing the minds of our youth, which we've allowed our education system to become a control factor for the Socialist Party. And they're indoctrinating. That's why we have children now supporting communism and socialism, because of this stuff. We've empowered them to think that they have a right to resist the rights of other people and impose your own on them, because it's going to give something to you better in return. And that's basically what they're saying to them. These other people who want their freedoms and liberties are holding you back from government giving you everything that we promise you. The problem is whatever they giveth, they can taketh. And with a $23 trillion debt, there isn't a whole lot they're going to be given, because it's not there, but they're buying votes. The 1996 motor voter law gave us our bifurcated voting system we have today. Bill Clinton and the Republicans in office said that federal elections, you don't have to prove citizenship or your ID. Show ID that you're a citizen. All you have to do is check a box saying you attest to the fact that you are a citizen. And they have to give you a ballot, a federal ballot. That's why we have a 2-ballot system. So we have federal elections that are being voted on by people who don't have to prove they're a citizen. That's where I think we have a problem. That's an unconstitutional, because the 14th Amendment, the 19th Amendment, the 24th Amendment, and the 26th Amendments all say a citizen's right to vote. It's clearly stated, only citizens can vote. So I'll let it go at that because it's getting late. Yes, sir.
Before you leave, I've got to ask you this. We all believe in the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, and 10th Amendment. That's the foundation of the Constitution, as far as I'm concerned. But how do you square this with the fact that we are giving sanctuary states in violation of the supremacy clause of the Constitution?
With dual sovereignty. The states are sovereign in our powers that we have to affect in government. We have under Article 1, Section 10, restrictions on the states. And if you read that, I need your Constitution. Oh, I haven't given it back to you. Go to Article 1, Section 10. And this is just talking about borders for now. Fourth, Article 1, Section 10, Clause 4. No state shall, without the consent of Congress, lay any duty of tonnage, keep troops or ships of war in time of peace, enter into any agreement or compact with another state or with a foreign power. We have state legislators going and making agreements with Mexico, making agreements with Israel just now for the state. Is that authorized under this? Or is it supposed to be, because now we're having, now Indiana, Texas, New Mexico, Idaho, they can all go negotiate their own. That's a whole violation of the intent of what we're supposed to do. But anyway, that's a separate one. And or with a foreign power, or engage in war, unless actually invaded or in such imminent danger as would not admit of delay. So if we can enter into war to protect our state in actual danger, or if we delay, we're going to perish, how can we not defend our borders? Does that make sense? Now, sanctuary, Article 4 says the Congress shall guarantee a Republican form of government. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4 says Congress shall standardize a uniform system of naturalization. Who becomes a citizen, correct? So the states can admit foreign nationals, but the Congress decides if they're going to be a citizen or not. And I refer you back to the McCarran-Walter Act of 1952. But here on voting, we can't, and on illegal entries, if we've decided that it's illegal to come here in violation of our immigration laws, we can't then make sanctuary. And if again, I think it's Federalist 45, 43, read that, where they talk about citizenship and the conflict if we allow other states to declare citizenship and how the myriad of problems that would it would commit. So, but in our own state, we have a law, ARS 1110-1051, I think it is, that says cities, counties, and municipalities shall cooperate with Border Patrol, immigration services. So our state says they have to cooperate with this, determining if someone should be deported or not, or if they're here legally or not. We have to. The reason that's important is because, as I said earlier, states are independent, sovereign nations operating on international law or Constitution. Cities, towns, counties, municipalities are not. They are controlled and organized under the laws of the state. There's also another section, it's in the 14 series, I don't remember which series it is, it says, any legislature, and this was passed in 2016, any legislator that finds a state or believes a state, county, municipality is violating the Constitution or state law can report that to the Attorney General's office, and he shall investigate. Another thing is, during this period, that legislator can file a report with the State Department, the Secretary of State, and say any state shared revenue shall be withheld from that city, Tucson, if they were to have elected that, until they correct their error. So they're violating state law. They can't. Sanctuary cities cannot exist in Arizona. And they're violating, I believe, state constitution. I have to look at the section again. But for state law, for sure. Does that answer your question?
Well, yeah, but I'm just wondering why the Attorney General of the United States hasn't gone into California, for example. I mean, on the supremacy clause.
Well, what is the supremacy clause? Only those laws in compliance to this Constitution, and it says treaties and agreements in accordance with the authority of this Constitution, are supreme law of the land. So we have to look at, those are congressional laws. Is the congressional law that they have, is it in compliance with the Constitution? And does that impact the state? It's more convoluted than I can give you an answer to today. I can't.
Well, I mean, most of these people who are being protected by these sanctuary laws have broken federal law just to be here.
Exactly. So. And these people that are supporting it are violating their oath, because look at the 14th Amendment, Clause 3 or 4, that talks about any state legislator, representative, anybody that takes an office and takes an oath, federal, state, or local, and violates that oath knowingly, shall not serve. It means they have to be removed. But we don't affect that as a people, and that's on us. We have to find a way to create a mechanism to remove these people when they violate their oath, and that's us. I want to look at that. So I hope it gets your support. But I think we have to look at that. That's why we have the chaos we have today. the division in our country. No one's held accountable to stand for their oath.
You said something, if you can just repeat it, the municipalities and a bunch of other stuff are not operating.
Cities, counties, towns, municipalities are not separate and independent sovereign entities. They are controlled by the state. They have to comply with state law. Towns, municipalities, they have to comply with state law and the Constitution as well. So, yeah, absolutely. And they have to, it's the states also that are responsible to affect the principles and the laws of the Constitution, of the national Constitution. Okay, I've gone a long time, I know, I'm sorry. I'm done. Any final questions? Okay. All right, I'll open up to some questions because I know it's getting long. I could talk for a long time on other things, but.
Do you have any opinions on homeowners?
I'm sorry?
Do you have any opinions on homeowners associations?
Oh, I hate them.
With the municipality,
HOAs is kind of a beast that's occurred in the last 30, 40 years, I think. They do. And they're representative power, but we have such things called people's property rights, and they're dictating just about everything. Well, yeah, and also, is it constitutional for the county if you have a property and you're free and clear, or even if it's not free and clear, if you got a property you've had for 10 years and you have an illness or a family death and you're no longer able to pay your taxes, is it legal for that county to take that property and all that equity? They're stealing that equity or that value of the property that you have in it because you owe $3,000 in taxes. Is that legal? What do you think? You're thinking it over. What should happen, in my opinion, is that property belongs to that individual. There is an obligation for funding of government that the society has accepted in Arizona and every state and voted as a natural practice. However, that individual should not lose any equity that home may have. That home should be either paid the equity, the value, just like in eminent domain, paid the going value of that property should be paid to that individual and then subtract what's owed to the county. That's my opinion. It is wrong to take this individual's property because they owe $3,000, $4,000, and if it's worth $200,000, and kick them on the street.
do you think that Letters and Mark are involved with some of the HOAs?
Who?
Letters and Mark involved with HOAs?
Letters?
No, I'm serious. Like, does anyone have an opinion on that?
I don't know. Letters of marquee?
Yeah.
No. No. But the federal, like I said though, it's not in, or is it? Is it in the, it may be. We have, they cannot do a direct tax. So is that taxation a direct tax on that? It's like they can't tax Bullet individually from the federal government. No direct tax, in my opinion. That has not been clearly defined, and that I could find in the Federalist Papers. Not on direct tax is pretty vague, but a direct tax is, if you look at the word direct, it's taxing something specifically direct, and they're saying that they're prohibiting that. So I don't know if that would apply in that regard or not. You got other people that are researching, find out, and just get back on opinions on that.
They have an excise tax on every time.
Excise taxes are coming from other countries and stuff.
Well, okay, they have taxes on it. Any
Yeah,
tire you buy,
but they're not taxing you an excise tax, I don't believe.
yeah,
Is it?
you pay it when you buy a tire.
Randy, from what I'm seeing, you have the state, and inside the state is a bunch of counties.
Yeah.
Inside, let's say Maricopa County, there's a bunch of cities. Inside, let's say Phoenix, you end up with a bunch of HOAs. If you look at your column, like the bottom of it, it's now saying what HOA you're actually Like
Like a zip code or something. Wow.
And if you look at, if they are only a corporation, then why do they take such a big chunk of the statutes? I mean, why doesn't Taco Bell have its own section and the Arizona Revised section? Why doesn't Sally's Beauty Supply have a whole section? I mean, what, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Really wrong.
yeah, that's something I wasn't aware of. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. If it may not even really be significant, I don't know. Depends on what they're using that information for.
What?
No, that could be a possibility, yeah. Yes.
Randy, I really enjoyed your presentation today.
Yeah, thank you.
Just before you end here, there's no right or wrong to my question, but I did it. What do you think are the top 4 or 5 existential threats to the United States of America today?
Border security, number 1 in my opinion. The influence of communism and socialism in our government aspects, corruption in our government, influences from violating our laws as we're seeing, the lack of will of our politicians to affect the laws that they're responsible to affect on each other, and the influence of Islam in our politics that is taking over the thought processes. You no longer can, there's even the United Nations has a, what is that? Not blasphemy, but defamation. And that was put forward through the OIC. You guys know who the OIC is? Or the Cooperation of Islamic Council? Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC. It's the 2nd largest governing body in the United Nations. 57 Islamic countries, not completely Islamic, but mostly Islamic, some of them. 57. Where did you hear 57 before? 57 states. Yeah. He's probably referring to the 57 members of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. They have put forward, they have 2 things. They pushed for the defamation law to be taken national, where basically you can't, they said any religion, but it's talking about Islam. It's a violation to say anything bad about Islam. And they also have their own, the Cairo Declaration. Have you heard of the Cairo Declaration? The Cairo Declaration is their own declaration on human rights. The United Nations has their Declaration on Human Rights. I think it was done in the 1980s. And then the Council, Islamic Organization for Islamic Cooperation, OIC, did their own in 1991, presented it that they said, we have our own standard of human rights, and we believe it's you do, but only as it relates to Sharia. So if you're gay and Sharia says that you can be thrown from a high building, that's not a violation of human rights. Or if you, if we say that being unfaithful to your husband, if you cheat and you commit this crime, it's a death penalty. Adultery is death by stoning. That's not a violation of human rights. It's in our law. So they have a standard that they think should be applied, and they want that worldwide because they think Sharia should be applied to all religions, conquer all religions.
This can be summed up in 3 words. The Democrat National Party.
Yes, yes. Socialism, communist, Islam. Okay, thank you, folks.